Hello, Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network listeners. I am Jeff Hawkins, co-host of Shake Them Ropes, with a very special announcement. If it's been a while or you've never listened to us before, the original gang is back. Myself and Rob McCarran, back talking wrestling. We have no idea where this show's going to go, where we're going to keep any of the old bits or any of the old things in there. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a journey, and we'd like for you to come along with us. Only on Shake Them Ropes on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Gotta let it go. Faster finger down. Stars tonight together. Here everyone is singing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for August 5th, 2026. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network feed or on our own dedicated Open the Voice Gate feed, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on social media at Open Voice Gate, both on Twitter and on Blue Sky. And if you would like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the red box that says sponsor this podcast, and you set up a one-time or reoccurring donation, no obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank all of our previous donors. I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Mike Spears, joined alongside your other host, Kay Slow. And it's an interesting time, I feel like, in the Dragongate schedule now. It feels like we've kind of had a little bit of return to tradition. But how are you doing, bud?
I saw Brooks Jensen fired off another banger tweet today, so I can't complain.
I had to make sure you knew about this tweet as soon as I saw it.
Of course.
In my
Not gonna,
timeline.
just for those that might have missed it, and rest in peace to Dory Funk Jr. I shared my Dory Funk Jr. match of choice yesterday, which is, he and Terry versus Giant Baba and Jumbo Tsuruta from 1973, which is the earliest footage
Hell
of
yeah.
Jumbo. It's the earliest footage of Jumbo we have, and you can see from the jump that he's pretty great. I would say, I very, very cautiously, as the man has just died, but far from the biggest Dory Jr. fan, especially far from the biggest Dory Jr. fan when he's not teaming with Terry. But nevertheless, it's a Dave obituary that I'm going to be quite excited to read, and it's a sad loss just for that era of wrestling. But as we talked about a few weeks ago, my antennas are up on this phony Brooks Jensen, and I see that Mike has pinged me in a tweet that he sent out yesterday, 10:24 p.m., in which he said, "Not gonna lie, I was hoping to see more of our current talent in pro wrestling show some appreciation for a pioneer like Dory Funk Jr." I don't know what he was expecting. This is a guy tweeting this from the Performance Center. I see first comment, by the way, from Joe Coffey. 98% of the roster don't have a clue, mate. Don't worry, ignorance must be bliss. Fascinating that Joe Coffey would have that take of all people. But yeah, Brooks Jensen
Yeah.
firing off another one. I'm all about it. I'm such a big fan.
I posted this in the Open the Voice Gate channel on the Voices of Wrestling Discord earlier, and I love the fact that he's basically trying to purity test all these NIL hirings. And I wanted to like construct a list of people that I feel like that he needs to be like bringing up or whatever, just because it's just so. After we had like the conversation the first time about Brooks Jensen's tweets and his just in demeanor, it really has kind of become true. Become like very clear to me that this guy is just so focused. Okay, Case, I think he is watching earlier today, 7:05 a.m. at the PC match, Dory and Terry Funk versus Saruda and Giant Baba. So another fan of that match. For
Yeah,
you
I can't tell if that's the one that I sent out because they obviously had a few different tags throughout the 70s, and that's. That's very fun stuff. I mean, the Funks in the 70s speak for themselves, and I think that Baba Jumbo team, I think at this point has kind of become largely unexplored because by the time you get to the early 80s, Jumbo is off doing his own thing, and then very quickly you get into that Jumbo Tenryu tag team. So you sort of have to be up on your 73 to 79 All Japan, which luckily I am, and there's some real high points during that promotion that I, to me is sort of the pinnacle that we have on footage of 70s wrestling. But yeah, I really like the 73 match just because it's a lot of it's one of the only chances you really get to see like a primitive Jumbo Saruda getting worked over the way that a young boy would for the next 50 years, but it's Jumbo doing it. So it's a little bit more engaging, and just from the historical perspective of it, it's a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. To me, Dory, much more so than I feel like as a wrestler, because like to me, I'm a lot like you. The Funk Brothers team is really kind of where it's at when you're like watching him. But like as a figure, I feel like that. And of course, like he has been kind of somewhat out of wrestling, somewhat in wrestling with like the Funkin' Conservatory in Osceola, Florida, and all of that. But I feel like that he is, especially when you talk about Japanese wrestling and the ideas of him really being that star in the 60s and 70s and topping out at the early 80s for him. He's kind of like one of those last, other than Hansen, he is kind of the last gaijin standing of that big 60s to 70s to 80s era to me. And even Hansen, I would say, is a little bit from a much more recent era in a way. But like thinking about at least that time period of Puro, and especially what the Funks meant as a tag team, that's kind of where I am. A lot of where my thoughts about Dory's passing kind of goes to.
Yeah,
like the ending of that kind of
I
era.
consider Hansen to be
80s into 90s.
Yeah,
and
an 80s and 90s guy, and then he retires in 2000. But you're right. I mean, Dory represents an era that is, without sounding crass, an era that's just dead now. But even though if I might not like watching a ton of Dory, but I have the same fascination with reading about his career that I have with a Gene LaBelle or with a Danny Hodge or with, Bruno, but especially Bruno in Japan or early Andre in Japan, because one, I think Dave is kind of in a sweet spot when he writes about those guys. I mean, I love when he mentions Danny Hodge because I think he's one of the most interesting humans ever. But yeah, this is going to be one of those where it might not hit me in the sense of when Tenryu passes, when Hansen passes, when Kobashi passes, that will be a week dedicated to just going back and watching everything that I possibly can. I don't have that from Dory. I'm no Brooks Jensen. I don't have that feeling when it comes to Dory Funk Jr., but
I don't have the
era
feeling
that he represents, I'm very sad to see go by the wayside.
No, I'm totally with you. I love the fact, and I don't think we brought this up when we really did our expose of the Performance Center TV. I love that it looks like that's very clearly a coffee bar or like hydration station that he's just posting right in front of watching. He was watching like PWG and stuff like this at an era that's very clearly like get your coffee, fill your water bottle up, and like get back to like the break room. It feels like that this guy is just monopolizing the TV, watching whatever he wants to do for his brand.
Psychotic.
It is psychotic. And case speaking of psychos, Dragongate lost perhaps its biggest psychotic presence yesterday as Shun Skywalker had his final match in a Dragongate ring against Homare at the sold-out Korakuen Hall show, the kickoff to Rey de Parejas. And I think that we're going to do a lot more of an expansive conversation about the career of Shun Skywalker and where we go from here, where the company goes from here, where what we are expecting in kind of like his future next week. But just off the cuff, Shun Skywalker's career in Dragongate, almost 10 full years, is now over with his victory over Homare and the SSW grand finale.
I think the story here is that it's not that big of a story. And you and I next week are gonna do a show dedicated solely to the Dragongate career of Shun Skywalker. And I'll put together some matches, Mike will put together some matches, and we'll kind of go through point by point next week of what he's done over the last decade of his career, because I think it's worth a more thorough examination. Because as we talked about last year, this is a guy who, when you sculpt that Mount Rushmore, you've got Shima and you've got Mochizuki and you've got Shingo in that last spot. I feel like most people would have debated between Yamato and Yoshino, and I feel like the 10 years of Shun Skywalker's career that we've had up to this point were far more effective and far more efficient and peaked higher than the 20 years that we got from Yoshino, or as we sit here in the 20th year of Yamato's career. I thought Skywalker towards the end of last year sort of solidified himself as that fourth head on that Mount Rushmore. And now to think about the conversations we were having about him at this time last year, late July, early August, what he represented at Dragongate, him ending that Yamato Dreamgate run, what was going to come of Skywalker versus Kikuta, that was all only 1 year ago. And if you would have told me after getting through Kobe World with Yamato last year, with him winning the title and escaping that stip of, if he loses, he's going to leave the promotion forever, to get past that, and then 1 year later for him to actually leave, I think the fact that it is not overtly catastrophic is really interesting on a number of levels. But it's one of those things that I've had a hard time placing my emotions with. I've had a hard time synthesizing my thoughts on it. This podcast is going to hit your guys' feeds on Thursday morning. My goal, we'll see if this happens, is for the written review to be up Friday morning. There's a chance that gets bumped back to Monday, but the goal is to have the writing up on Friday. And I'm just, as I sit here, even 24 hours removed from watching this show, I'm just having a hard time coming to grips with the idea that this is the last time that we're going to see him here. And I'm having a hard time coming to grips with the fact that it doesn't feel like that big of a deal either. It's all one big swirl of confusing emotions that represents just how weird the last year, but realistically more the last 6 or 7 months of his career have been.
Yeah, and I originally, when we first got the news that he was leaving, I was like, all right, we have some time before I want to get together, a written retrospective, a column, what I did for Shingo and what I like kind of doing for these kinds of things. And as we got closer, not to double down on what you're saying, Case, but that's kind of been my my reaction as we got closer. And then yesterday, and a lot of it was that I'm still kind of coming to terms. I'm still kind of a little bit of a wait and see that was going to happen, or ending with his final match and the way that he kind of left the promotion and how contrary that kind of is to how things usually operate. And the more that I think about it, and it's really taking someone who has had maybe, and one of the things I want to do next week, Case, is I want to take a look at 10-year stretches in people's careers in the Dragon system, because I feel like that for your Mount Rushmore comment, I still think that Yamato is very cemented as my number 4 on that Mount Rushmore. But I think that if you take like the first 10 years of someone's career within the Dragon system and look at the accolades, his case becomes so much stronger for that. But like the fabric, like how he affects like the fabric of the promotion, I don't know. I feel like that maybe his departure being like announced so far in advance probably helped that, this being like the first Dragongate Korakuen above 1400, I feel like, since last year.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean, the farewell, it's funny, you sent that note to me today about the sellout, and my initial response was like, well, yeah, I fucking hope so. You know, I would
the way
hope
that things were going this year in 2026, I was not completely positive it was going to happen.
I guess I wasn't positive either, but that's the non-story in all this to me. Is like, yeah, they better have put 1,500 people in the building. It's the Shun Skywalker farewell show. Had they not done that, I would have been even more gravely concerned about the state of things than I already am. But that to me was just like, yeah, they better have, of course. Good, moving on. It's you know, I was thinking about a few different things in relation to his departure today. I mean, one, you're right, getting out in front of it in May, when the industry was already kind of talking about it, I figured something was up given some conversations I had earlier in the year, that when he wasn't on the WrestleMania weekend list, a few people were like, maybe he's hurt. But I was like, no, I feel like he'd be coming over on that trip if he was really committed to the product right now. So it didn't surprise me that he wasn't on that list. And then, you know, we got that announcement in May. And so we had a chance to wind down with him. Whereas I think in real time, you know, the Takumas and the Kentos and the Kaito Ishidas, the guys that leave in some veil of mystery, that always does some damage to the promotion. To me, this feels a lot closer to the Eita departure than the Shingo departure. The Shingo one, like, I don't know. I was thinking about this last night where, you know, in real time, the consensus in 2018, and you got to remember this is on the heels of the OWE split and Shima and T-Hawk and Lindemann leaving, but the Shingo split was largely received as like, yes, this is good for both parties. Shingo clearly has interest elsewhere, and it just doesn't seem like there's anything else for him to do in this promotion.
And it was a long time coming, given talk about him wanting out probably for several years at that point.
Yes, exactly. Whereas, you know, the Eita thing, he wins the Dreamgate in 2020. He's in RED and all of those great RED versus Masquerade matches in 2021. And then you get to 2022 when Shun gets elevated to that heel unit leader spot, RED becomes Z-Brats, and then, you know, I it's like I'm still waiting here. I feel like a kid waiting for his dad to pick him up for the weekend, and I'm sitting on my front porch step. I'm still waiting on the Eita babyface turn and the partnership with Maria and whatever comes of that. And the fact is, it just never happened. And then Eita was slowly phased out because of a mutual agreement that he had with the promotion, to where when Eita left, and he didn't even get that announced final match, just one day it was like, oh, okay, he's a full-time Noah guy now. And we all washed our hands of it. It wasn't that big of a deal. And the Shun thing feels more like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and the Eita thing also had the fact that there was, after the Yoshioka match, he did a curtain call for that Dangerous Gate.
Yeah, we all thought that was it. That was Gate of Destiny, because that was...
No, it was Gate. It was Dangerous Gate because it was in Otaku.
You're right. Yamato was Gate of Destiny. Yeah, because did he wrestle Takuma on that show?
No, that was Eita versus Yoshioka main event.
No,
I'm thinking like a year before that. Sorry, yeah, no, it was Takuma on that show. You're right. Yeah.
Gate of this was, because remember, this was the first show that crowds could make noise at, which is, it's crazy to think it was November of 2022, but this was such a big deal. And yeah, it was Eita and Takuma. Oh god, that makes me so sad. And then that Yamato Yoshioka match in the main event. But yeah, that boy, that's depressing. But with Eita, is like, you know, he was slowly phased out to a point that we thought maybe after that Yoshioka match he was going to go away. He hung around for a little bit, mainly just doing Tokyo and Osaka stuff. And then when he left, it was like we all kind of shrugged our shoulders and went, okay. And I think maybe we did half of an episode on Eita, but he just felt so disconnected from the fabric of the promotion. By the time he left, it didn't feel that catastrophic. And I do think it is a positive for the promotion that Shun feels the same way, that they've successfully landed the plane on this idea that we're going to go forward first with Skywalker by our side, and then later we're just going to go off in a separate direction of him. And there are things on this show that made me hopeful about the future. The problem is that you're not leaving behind 2022 Ata. You're leaving behind a guy who, as I've said for years and years and years now, one, I would put him as the fourth head on that Mount Rushmore, but two, he's the best wrestler of the 2020s, not named Will Ospreay or Bryan Danielson. And that is the guy that you're leaving behind. And I think because of some of the odd booking choices, some of his own creative choices that maybe haven't hit the mark, and because he's been so de-emphasized this year, that's the type of thing that in the short term we're actually not going to feel. And it's a positive that we're not going to feel that. But in the long term, when we need a big show main event, and when we need a great match, and when we need a great promo, and when we need a great angle, now we're taking that piece out of the puzzle, and that's devastating. And that's the type of thing that is going to hit us all 4 or 5 months from now, a year from now, when we're going to be in a situation, and the one guy that could really elevate things is the guy that's no longer here.
Yeah, and you know, like the match itself that he had with Homare, maybe it was that now we have gotten Homare away from Saipatra now firmly with Xenostal, Nova, and Ryoya Tanaka, that like he has like made his progression away from Shun Skywalker, where Shun Skywalker, you know, has been a very static wrestler since August of last year, and that kind of in a way really colored the match for me, was just watching this and going like, Homare feels like he's like this figure, or like feels like that he's progressing, coming up on that 2-year anniversary, and it's like a ghost from the past. This match felt like to me.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, but that's the odd thing with all the Shun stuff, is ever since the cage match in April, everything that he's done, even when it's been good, it's just felt kind of unnecessary. And like, I was really locked in on the Rey de Parejas stuff on this show. I had a ton of investment in that. I had a ton of investment in the Yamato and KZ stuff. I was really into the opener, one, because of half the guys in it, you know, Tristan Moody included. But I had a harder time focusing on the Skywalker Homare match because it felt unnecessary. He feels like a ghost from the past. It feels like this promotion has already kind of moved on without him. It's just a very strange thing. I'm having a very hard time wrapping my head around the fact that he is actually done, even if realistically he's been done for months now.
Yeah, and it was very much a Shun Skywalker style match. Like, you had the opening brawl through the crowd, and then Homare tries to invert it and drags Shun to the orange entrance, and a lot of kind of fun countering, and then like a Momo latch that turned into a crowd or a crab, and then it just kind of went on towards the finish. It was a SSW, then the Skywalker moonsault. This was the second Sky SSW of the night. The first one was a wild avalanche into an SSW that Shun wasn't able to get there for an immediate 3 count. And I think that's the other aspect about me just in a way feeling like how ephemeral this match was Homare progressing, and, you know, already, like, I would argue over the last 3 weeks has done a lot of good positive steps for his long-term career, and Shun Skywalker can't even put over his protege on the way out.
Well,
And
okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you this question if the finish bothered you or not, and I take it that it did.
I mean, I look at these kinds of situations with like the debits and credits system, right? And I feel like that Shun Skywalker, he had on his way out, he could have really done the business, and Homare could be in an even better spot. And I feel like that's a missed opportunity for Homare's sake. That's my only sense of negativity with it. It makes sense that Shun Skywalker would put down the guy that he put down in the steel cage without going completely nuts on it. I think only like the wrinkle of him pinning him with his babyface finish or his pre-excursion finish also was kind of nice. But I do kind of wonder if Homare could have gotten a little bit more out of this match than he ended up doing, because it just was a pretty standard Shun Skywalker style singles match.
The tone of this match reminded me a lot of the final Okada matches in New Japan. A much more abrupt, much more dramatic exit. And I think Dragongate has navigated losing their Okada in a bit of a more graceful way than New Japan did. But there was this outcry of Okada's not putting over so-and-so and so-and-so. And I was like, I don't know. I don't really buy that those guys, had Okada not been leaving, I don't buy that they would have been able to beat him. And so I was watching this Homare match, and given, as I've talked about since April, the mangled booking that he's been a part of, and the fact that he didn't win on TV from May to July, not until they booked the Bravegate match for World, but not before then, it's not like he came into this match with a ton of momentum, happened to lose the Bravegate match, but goddamn, he's still hot right now. Homare has felt much hotter even in his short career, I think at a few different points in time in his career. And I think had he won, even if it would have been with like a victory roll, I think I would have rolled my eyes a little bit, because if we were going to have this match with the idea that Skywalker's not leaving, there's a 0% chance that I would ever buy Homare winning. And so I didn't need to force them. I didn't need them to force anything here. I felt like this was the appropriate finish. I don't know if the one night victory, when everybody knows that Skywalker is not even 1 foot out the door, he's out the door by the time this match hits the ring, I don't know if that victory does anything for him. I think you have the symbolism of this match. I'm very glad they got it in. I'm very glad it exists. Now he can go focus on his AI unit, where I can't think of the name of it to save my life right now, and he can just go exist in that universe. And I think he'll be better off for it long term that way.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, that if this was a King of Gate match, we would not be calling for that. We'd be like, all right, let's see what step forward Homare would make in this matchup against his former mentor. Like, that's an incredibly valid point about
Maybe,
it.
yeah. I mean, I think this was kind of worked like a King of Gate match, and I don't think the finish would have bothered me had it been within the confines of that tournament either. I just think he came into this match cold. That's the issue. If he is on a completely different trajectory from May to now, and it feels like this victory could actually bring him up a rung in the pecking order, I probably have a completely different opinion on it. I thought they put a Band-Aid on him in the build to the Bravegate match, which was largely saved just by the idea that Tanaka's having defense number 12 and you're at Kobe World and the Bravegate is going on second from last. I don't really think Homare did a ton to facilitate that atmosphere and to facilitate that environment, but he also wasn't given a chance because he's been booked so horrendously since he had his head shaved. If he comes into this match with more momentum and then he loses this, it might be a totally different conversation. But the guy's still pretty cold. I mean, this is a unit that's going to be propped up by Tanaka for a while, and we'll see how aggressive they get with Kimura. Ideally, I would like them to be really aggressive with Kimura, but we're a year into his career, and they're not really showing signs that that's going to happen. But if you were going to do power rankings of the three guys there between Homare and Tanaka and Kimura, Homare's in third place right now. I think he's the coldest of the three. I think he's the least interesting of the three, and it's not that I'm down on him. I'm as bullish on him as a future Kobe World main eventer than anybody on this roster. It's just right now he's in a slump, and I think this match sort of accurately depicted that.
That's fair. That's fair. I think I would still have Homare above Kimura, just because Kimura hasn't had a legit win. You know, I mean,
they've got Kimura looking like B-Boy all of a sudden. I didn't recognize him when he hit the ring.
Yeah, no.
Let's talk. I don't know what that is.
Hey, did you have any more thoughts about the match itself? Do you want to talk about Xenostal Nova, the hot new medication that
I'll table the rest of my Skywalker thoughts for next week, I think. I mean, it's a massive loss, but it hits a little bit like the 8-1, like I said, where I think a lot of, for lack of a better term, the mourning that we were going to do about Skywalker happened when that announcement was first made, and this farewell run was so awkward and at times so off-putting. You know, in particular, the Kobe World match was so off-putting that it has only confused my emotions, because I do think this guy is an all-time great. I think he's one of the 100 greatest wrestlers ever. I think he's one of the most important people in the history of Dragongate. This era of the promotion is going to be entirely defined by him. And the fact that we're not getting more of him in Kame, that we're not getting more of him in Rita, that we're not getting more of him in Jason, that we're not getting more of he and Mante, we're not going to get KZ defending the belt against Skywalker. And I think the dynamics for that match would have been fascinating. That's the stuff that's going to really hurt. But I think I'll be a little bit more ready to have that conversation next week, because I'm still just sort of fighting through the weird cloud that is this Skywalker farewell run right now.
Yeah, and I greatly feel the same about it. Given take the week, and we'll come back and do a full kind of post-mortem. I mean, it's also like hard to even say like, Case, it's hard for me to say, Case, what's your star rating on this kind of match, when I'm still kind of figuring out how I feel about this match in a way. Like, it was a good enough farewell. It didn't have any of the emotions, like as we've kind of been talking about. We've been mourning in real time the departure, and maybe we need to mourn for another few days, and we'll come back next week to have a more full retrospective of the Dragongate career of Shun Skywalker.
Yep, very much so.
So Xenostal Nova, you brought up our new B-boy lookalike, Kazuma Kimura, in his entrance here. It's the name of Tanaka Gun. I direct everyone to Jay's Blue Sky for all the trappings of this. That, man, it kind of takes the wind out of the sails a lot after the debut, other than the fact that these are three very cool young guys in a cool young guy unit. That, you know, the further we get away from this debut, and like the fact that, frankly, it's completely AI generated, everything to do with this unit, probably the better everyone kind of feels about it.
So I want to make sure that I'm getting the pronunciation of this right. It is Xenostal Nova?
Yeah.
Not exactly Monster Express, is it? Not exactly New Hazard.
Not even Italian connection.
Not even Italian. It's no Crazy Max. I mean, we're obviously...
Deep Drunkers. You'd be better off with Deep Drunkers.
I don't know about that. But, we've obviously hit a creative nadir with how these units are being named, the way their logos are being created, the way that they're being built. But I will say I am super bullish on this unit. I really, really like the three of these guys together. And if Tristan Moody wants to stick around, I think he's more than welcome to join this unit.
Yeah, real impressive opening match for the Xenostal and Moody group. This was the opener from Korakuen. It was Love and Peace, Jackie, Rita, and Junior versus Gajadokuro, Madoka Kakuta, Kai, and Jason Lee versus Xenostal Nova's Ryoya Tanaka and Kazuma Kimura, entering from the orange seats, as well as Tristan Moody. And Moody, every single time he has made TV, has made the most of it, and he feels already like he's up to speed and should be a part of this unit, if not just as the assistant for this tour, for someone that Tanaka can team with while Kimura and Homare are doing Rey de Parejas stuff. Then, open for the long-term future of Moody in Japan and seeing where he can go with them. And he looked great in this, and there was a great exchange that he had with Junior with this. The Junior apparently popped him on a house show, and the two of them just have a very quick and fast chemistry that has been a lot of fun to see, at least in this opener.
I can understand, after seeing him work a few different times now, I can understand how Moody pops at a seminar tryout type event, because for I don't know if a relative unknown or a complete unknown is the apt term, but certainly somebody that I was not familiar with prior to his association with Dragongate, the way that he moves around the ring, there's two things here. One, once I was told that his favorite wrestler was AJ Styles, everything about him made so much more sense. I was like, this guy moves around the ring like AJ, but that's a good thing, because this guy moves around the ring like AJ. And I watched him with laser focus in this match to see if he was going to have the timing needed to hang with Kame and to hang with Rita and to hang with Junior and to hang with Jason in some of the more complex sequences. And I was so thoroughly impressed by what I saw by this guy. It raises questions once again, and this is not a new issue. This is sort of a 7 or 8 year long issue now at this point as to what people on the American Indies are watching and how a guy like this, even at his age and experience level, was able to slip through the cracks at all, because he's clearly, I think, better than 95% of the guys that Game Changer has booked this year. He's fantastic in this match. I'm really bullish on him right now. I just want to see more of him. I get why he's not in Rey de Parejas. I think that probably would have been overdoing it with him, but I hope that he makes TV on all of these tour shows because I want to see more and more of him now.
Yeah, and he works well with Xenostal Nova. It clicked with him. And Kimura in this match, what a great babyface in peril, like him just taking an ass kicking, and the way that he was able to kind of pull that together in a role that he's probably going to have to do whenever they're doing the trios or the tag matches. It's going to be a lot probably of Kimura getting beat up during Rey de Parejas, but he's already so good at it. And he's already such a good wrestler.
That's the thing with him is
yeah.
I think sometimes they play a very dangerous game. I worried about this with Daiki a little bit. And I guess I have similar concerns with Fuda, although that's a different conversation. But sometimes in Dragongate, like, I just wish they would release the pressure valve and just have these guys get a win so that it's not a story about them not winning. And the Kimura thing is so odd because given some of the opportunities that he's been put in, whether it was the Triangle Gate match with Homare and Skywalker last year, or the fact that he's now in a unit as a guy with the gear, with the theme song, and a push unit that's going to be featured a lot, it just feels like he's above a storyline where he doesn't have a win. And I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but, let's say they come back to Korakuen next month. He gets his ass kicked all throughout Rey de Parejas. Any wins they have are, Homare hitting the Firebird Splash, and Kimura still doesn't have a pinfall 1 year into his career. I don't get the impression, maybe you disagree, that if he just comes out next month in a opening 8-man tag and throws Junior through the mat and pins him, I don't think it's going to get that crazy of a reaction. I feel like he's above the storyline that they're putting him in, and it's not one of those like Yanaguchi where we're like, oh God, I hope he can do it. I hope he can get that first win. Who knows what that could lead to? I feel like when I watch Kimura, we're all like, yeah, all right, let's get on with it. Like, this guy's better than the push you're giving him now. I don't think he needs to dethrone KZ, but let's get on with this a little bit.
Yeah, like even in this match itself, it felt like that with the way of where Junior is on the card right now. I kind of came into the match thinking, okay, sure, Tanaka probably is going to win this match. He's the unit leader here, but the next most obvious thing for me was Kimura penning or tapping out Mochizuki Jr. And it would not have been a surprise.
No, and I think it would have been good to be able to take that breath. And then I think it would have made this Rey de Parejas team more interesting, because if Kimura gets his first win in this match on this show in Korakuen, now I can watch what he does in Kobe and what he does in Nara and what he does in Osaka. I think they're making tape twice at the tournament. Like, now I could watch those with the idea that, oh, he could get another win on these shows. But I don't think, and I forget where he makes TV, but let's just say he's making TV in Nara. I don't think they're going to give him his first win there, and I don't really want that for him. I think at this point they're kind of already in a position. I know this is dangerous to say one show into this unit's history, but I worry a little bit that they're already sort of pulling back or needlessly reining in this unit. I'm ready for Kimura to do something else, and the more they talk about him not having a win, the more, like, for lack of a better term, uncomfortable it is. Like, I just want him to be in a higher spot than he is now, because I think for the workers on this roster, at least the output we've gotten in 2026, I think he's in the upper half. He's in the upper echelon.
Yeah, no, and it definitely feels like that it closing in on that anniversary if not have already passing it. I'm just not remembering offhand right now.
I believe it was September. No, I think it was September of last year, because October was that
Okay.
Dragongate match that he headlined.
That makes sense, because then September he was in the All Japan versus Dragongate match at Dangerous Gate. Okay. 11
Yes.
months into his career, it feels like that he, in a lot of ways, he's doing exactly where you want your Dragongate rookie to be in. Like, I mean, he's already in his first unit. He's already like at this point, but it does in a lot of ways. And I think it's just like his sheer ability and the hot first 6 weeks of his career, making you feel like, man, can he really, can we really get the show on the road here? And it almost feels like in that way that he's behind, when in reality he's kind of where he should be at in a way, other than his prodigious ability kind of changing the Overton window with him.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I think that tracks.
It's interesting. Yeah, he rocks. And
I don't love his gear. I don't love this new look. I think the shorts might be a mistake. I think going back to the biker shorts would be a better look for him. This makes him look a little smaller, which I don't like.
Yeah, and if he did the shorts, he could look like 2002 Dick Togo.
Yeah, right now he just looks like B-Boy from the SoCal Indies, and I don't need it. He's doing the like 2000 Indies shorts that I don't like that. Let me ask you this in relation to...
I have one roast on the gimmick, but before you toss on a alternate LaDainian Tomlinson jersey, we'd be saying he's MCKZ.
That's the thing. It kind of reminds me of like Pudgy KZ, and I don't really want to be reminded of Pudgy KZ.
Yeah, no, and I like and I understand that like his little logo that he still has on the shorts that were the same from his tights maybe don't translate to light blue and gold as well as other things, but it's a little bit of a pleather shorts job, a little Jersey All-Pro.
This can relate to both the opener and the main event. I sort of want to get your thoughts as just a concept here. We're now removed from Kakuta as Dream Gate champion. Ishii and Kato still your Twin Gate champions. Gaja Dokuro, the way that they were represented and the way that they performed on this show, what's your temperature check there with them as the heel unit now that we don't have Kakuta with the belt?
I feel pretty comfortable. I kind of felt like as soon as Kakuta dropped the belt and really like we kind of got into, I know we're not the 1 year anniversary point, but as we got away from it, that things would feel a little bit more comfortable. And I think also having a tag tournament happening it kind of restrained the amount of Gaja Dokuro right now. I mean, they're down to functionally 5 people, so there's not as much just influence on the show. And I think that impacts it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think I'm ready, and I also said this 2 years ago when it didn't happen. I think I'm ready for Kai to do something different. I think Paradox Kai, and I would like for Paradox to go away too, but I think Paradox Kai is probably a little bit more tolerable than Gaja Dokuro Kai at this point. But I like Jason and Kakuta together. I worry about Ishii and Kato. I simultaneously really like that tag team and also think that they don't bring out the best in one another, which is a very odd thing to say. But I think as a team, they do good work. And I feel like both of them are still capable of doing something better. I think, and again, not to jump too far ahead into the main event, because I have separate thoughts on that, and we'll talk about Hyo and Valletta and all that sort of stuff. But I wasn't bothered by the referee interference and the weapon spots in the main event, given the context of what that main event was. I felt like that fit. That was fine. That didn't bother me. What I don't want is when we're in Nara at the end of the month, I don't want Ishii and Kato versus Kame and Rita to turn into that same sort of structure of match. I think this is a time, in the same way that I want them to release some of the pressure with Kimura, I think this is a time for Gaja Dokuro to play things a little bit more straight. Let Jason and Kakuta go out there and just have really good matches. There is no need for them at all to have any sort of referee interference spots for the next month. That is just not something they are going to need to do. But I think those guys are capable of being a really great tag team, at least for the month that we have them. And while I, in theory, would like to blow up Vibes, and I would like to blow up Paradox, and I would like to blow up Gaja Dokro, and I would really like to shuffle the deck on some of this stuff and get guys like Mante back in the mix, and we'll see what they're doing with Fuda here, which I'm a little intrigued by, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. But if they're going to exist and they're going to be around, I do feel like this is a time to go a little bit easier on what they had been doing. And I feel like we might get that with Jason and Kakuta. I don't feel like we're going to get that with Ishin and Kato, and that's a bit of a bummer. I do have a bad feeling that their entire tournament is going to look like what we saw in the main event, and to me, that's just unnecessary.
Yeah, it would be real nice if we don't see the cookie sheet that much over the next month.
And I thought it worked in that main event. I thought it made sense for that match. I don't need it in Kobe. I don't need it in Osaka. I don't need it in Nara. I don't need it next month when those semis in Korakuen. I don't need it anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And I just think like having Kakuta in this tag team with Jason and it just being the pressure being lifted off of that and just having a month or so where he's just kind of in that scene, and at least with the situation with Team 204 as Twin Gate champions, you kind of know that he's not going to be challenging for the Twin Gate most likely. And it just feels like that this is where it needs to be. And it would be nice if we had if we dialed back all the heel shenanigans for this tournament. And yeah, no, I'm with you on how they kind of felt in this match. But I really enjoyed this opener. I was 3 3/4 on it. I thought that it was really great. The finish was cross saber onto Junior. Just a really, really fun stuff. And Moody is great with these two guys. And I really feel like that the further we get away from it, I know that generative AI is what it is, and people have their well-founded opinions on it. And more often than not, I'm completely with them on it. I just kind of think that this is, in a lot of ways, Dragongate has always been bright units, and with that, in a level of kind of creativity that is indicative of that. But I do think that the more that it just kind of get through it, and it was other than just the silliness of it and the fact that this company is the one company that seems to be using AI for everything, and I totally understand how that's a red line for people, and that's going to be hard to kind of get through.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
I don't have the energy to do the AI conversation on this show because I have it enough in my own personal life, and I just feel like I'll shoot myself if I have to talk about it anymore. I don't like it. It doesn't change anything about the promotion for me. I wish they wouldn't do it because I feel like these names are overly confusing and they're not going to catch on, and it's word vomit for the sake of word vomit. So I wish they would get away from it from that perspective. I really, at this point in time, given the way that they're using it, I have no further opinion on it. As for the match, I don't know if this is a hot take to you, Mike. I thought it was the best match on the show, and I also had
really
it at 3 3. I had it at 3 3/4, same rating. I thought it was the best thing on the show. Now it had Kimura and Kame and Rita and Jason and Tanaka and Junior in it. So you're taking away a lot of the structure that is holding up this roster right now, and you're putting them all in one match. I thought this was the best thing on the show. I did not go Notebook with anything on this show.
You know, I had one match at Notebook that we'll talk about later. But yeah, this was not a bad Korakuen. This was very much a Korakuen that, although it was Rey de Parejas based, the real purpose of this Korakuen was to tell this Tokyo crowd, okay, next month, Rey de Parejas finals. We're back here for that. But after that, we have our big show in Oda Ward, and we have all of this set up for Oda Ward. And I think it achieved that purpose. And I think that the match quality was enough that I'm not going like, geez, we don't have 3-4-star matches. This is a garbage Korakuen. I don't think it was a garbage Korakuen. And I think that you know, the Shun Skywalker match could be anything from 3 stars to 4.25, and I would believe you. I just haven't come down at that point yet on seeing what it is.
I thought this was a productive show, which I really haven't been able to say about most of their shows this year. I thought this accomplished a lot. I did not love everything, but I tolerated just about everything, and I thought they accomplished a lot on this show. And I will take that every few Korakuens over just a great show. I would love for them at some point this calendar year to whip up a great show. That'd be nice to see. That'd be a nice change of pace. I don't really think we've got one of those in Korakuen since January, realistically. Like a top to bottom, hey, everybody's got to check this out. How great was this show type show? This was certainly not that, but I do think they accomplished a lot here, and I'll take that every once in a while.
Yeah, and I do really think that you look at how much they're running Tokyo at this time of year, and given that next one is the Rey de Parejas finals, next Korakuen is that, and then you turn around and they're right in Oda Ward, I think that there's a level of understanding, and it changes kind of the window of what you expect out of it. They'll be back in the building in less than a month, and then 9 days later, they have that big show at Oda Ward.
You know me, I typically just ask for a month-long build for at least the Dreamgate match, if not Brave Twin Triangle. And we're working on the Twin Gate in this tournament. We've got our Brave Gate match. We've got our Dreamgate match. I would love for them to have any sort of desire to put any sort of emphasis on the Triangle Gate belts. That just doesn't seem like it's going to happen as long as 11 Piece are champions, which is a completely...
And this tournament, too. And this tournament makes it real hard to build up a Triangle Gate match.
It does, but you have you booked 11 piece trios match in Korakuen, and this was probably the one thing where I was like, oh well, they could have done something here. And I get maybe they don't want to tip their hand. You know, maybe it ends up being Jason and Kikucha and Kai challenging for those belts, and they can't announce that until after the Rey de Parejas standings shake out the way that they do. I get that, but I would have liked some greater inclination as to what direction we're going with that, because you could realistically tell me they have no idea what the Triangle Gate match is going to be in September, and I would be forced to believe you if that was the case.
Yeah, and I think that it maybe this year for me, more so because of Oda Ward being where it is afterwards, it kind of, and I don't have the immediate recollection of how I felt about, well, I know how I felt about Summer Adventure Tag League 2016, but 2017, 2018, as how it relates to the other titles. Like, I don't remember that off the top of my head. But I do kind of feel like the fact that you have the Triangle Gate belts across 2 teams in the tournament kind of, in a way, takes those 3 people out of winning Rey de Parejas, in a way, given the fact that I think it's within expectations that it's probably going to be Rey de Parejas winner versus in a Twin Gate kind of match.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I hadn't really thought about the fact that they just figured out a new excuse to beat Kame and Rita, but they now have a new excuse to beat Kame and Rita. They can job them out for all of Rey de Parejas and then give them a lame duck Triangle Gate match at what was Dangerous Gate.
We're just really avoiding that name today, aren't we?
Well, I can never think of it. That's the like Golden Coliseum. I got that was easy. Uno Dos Tres. I like that name. But the what Hecto Infinity in it? I can't. I'm not even doing a gimmick. I can't think of what it is.
Tokyo Infinity Hecto Pascal. It looks so bad on Twitter. But like, I feel for Jay having to basically, whenever they're doing all the match announcements for things for it, going the symbol for Cyclone, Tokyo, spelt as if you were writing it from Spanish, so it's with an I, the infinity symbol, and then the abbreviation for hectopascal, which I did not know was until Music Man made this up on AI. So it's Tokyo infinity symbol H undercase H, uppercase P, lowercase a. That's what the show's called now.
And again, I'm not doing a gimmick. What's the Tanaka unit?
Xenostal Nova.
Oh God, that is
Just
so
call him
annoying.
Nova.
That is so annoying.
The frustrating thing is, like, it's very clear what they are supposed to be. Why is it Xeno with an X and not Xeno with a Z?
And why is it Zenith with an X and not Zenith with a Z?
Right. Yeah. It's blowing my brain here because it's a Gen Z unit. They should have a Z name in it.
You would think. Now, I do like that, at least as of now, they haven't really. The unit is not about how young they are, and I think that's a trope that is a dangerous trope to get into with all of Japanese wrestling right now. So I like that they're just young guys that happen to be together. But you're right. But again, Uno Dos Tres, I can remember that. Golden Coliseum, I can remember that. Hecto Infinity, Hector Pedro Pascal, or whatever the show is, I can't. It's gonna, and I'm gonna have to write that. That's gonna kill me.
Yeah, man. And it's even like for a Gate of Origin at a C rank show going and becoming Tohoku Dragongate Way, you can remember that one because you're like, okay, it's in Tohoku Dragongate Way, and that's it. But this one is rough.
It is.
I remember it because it's only really funny to hear being said. That's the only reason why I remember it, is because it's ridiculous.
It is really interesting that in such a down year creatively and such a down year at the box office, that they have decided to make so many of those changes. Whereas I think if I was manning the helm, I would be really firm on, hey, you know what, at least for this year, we're going to keep the Dead or Alive branding. I know it's in a different building, but it's still Dead or Alive. We're going to keep the Dangerous Gate branding. We're going to make sure that both of our new units don't have stupid names that nobody can remember. I would lean into that. Dragon Gate seems to be going the opposite direction.
I will say I like the colors. I think going baby blue is a color that they really have not done too much of, even though I know that D-Courage had blue in it, but going like baby Carolina blue, I think is a nice kind of difference. I was expecting pink, and we got just a neon blue, which is kind of
nice.
Oh
God, yeah. No, Tanaka looks great. Homare looks great. I wish Kimura would change his gear, but he largely looks very good. I think it was a successful launch. I just think the name.
I'm with you on that. Yeah, and I do think that the further we get away from it, the more we're just going to be deep drunkers. I think that was a great name. But
speaking of things we could get away from, Jiro Shimbashi. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Jiro Shimbashi had the next part of the Yamanote train challenge series at Kanda Station. It was Yasushi Kanda. Everyone knew it was Yasushi Kanda. He ran through him in 45 seconds with the Ryus. Jiro afterwards said, hey, this is ridiculous here. Everyone knew that it was Kanda. Let's just move on here. And Ryo Saito said, no, you have not won yet. And I think you're right. You're going to have your last one, because at Oda Ward, the last stop, potentially the Harajuku station stop of the Yamanote line Shimbashi series, will be against Minoru Suzuki.
Nice to see Suzuki back. I'm sure that match will be fun. I'm starting to once again lose energy and lose focus on Jiro. Over the last year, I've gone through various spurts of really enjoying it and then being out on it, and then he sucks me back in. I'm back out on it.
Yeah, I really just want him to be incorporated in the roster at this point. If you already have Bang Bang Pero, the clowns hanging around here, too much comedy. We talked about it last week, and at least like this time on a show that there was a lot of things that had to be done, they kept the comedy thing and really the jokiness of the show kind of to a minimum.
Yeah, no, that was great. Again, I thought it was a productive show. We're going to talk about a match in just a second that had an undercard angle on it, which I haven't seen from this promotion this year. So limited comedy, stuff happening, no clowns, a nice change of pace.
I'd say. And talking about the undercard angle, the next match was a 10-man tag. They realized that Zenith wasn't on the show, so they refigured out this match. It was Ultimo, Zenith, Yuki Yoshioka, and Makoto Minoru, Punch Tominaga, and Rhea Fuda versus the veterans of Masaki Mochizuki, Don Fuji, Genki Horiguchi, Mondai Ryu, and Takashi.
It was a nothing match up until the finish, and I thought the finish was super newsworthy.
Yeah, so the finish was Kota Minoru running through, hitting the R301, Rhea Fuda shoves him out of the way, gets the 3 count, and immediately challenges Ryoya Tanaka for the Bravegate title. Tanaka comes out and goes, "You're not facing me for the Bravegate title. I've been wanting to challenge Dragon Kid since Kobe World. I'm not doing this. You've done nothing." And GM Ryo Saito said, "Yes, no, we're going to go Dragon Kid at Oda Ward." And Ryofuda standing around looking frustrated after this.
They kind of started to do something with him last year during the Mochizuki Dojo stuff, where he started to win some matches, and that led to him challenging Tanaka for the Bravegate belt. And I thought all of that stuff was done very well, and I thought maybe that was going to be the jumping off point for Fuda, where we would see him as less of a sore thumb on this roster and more of just an actual roster member. And then that didn't happen. And now we've once again reset where we're going to try to do something with Fuda as we approach his 5th year anniversary in November. Debuted same time as Takuma Fujiwara, right after Rita, on a show that was headlined by Yamato versus Ben K in a high-end versus high-end match. That's how long Fuda's been in the promotion. And it seems like we finally have something with him. I thought this angle was clever. I love when they do stuff like this. This promotion, my biggest complaint this year is not the comedy. It is not even the overdone heel stuff that Gaja Dokuro has done. It's the fact that a lot of times pre-intermission, nothing happens and nothing gets accomplished and nothing goes forward whatsoever. And so now you're in a position, I mentioned this after World, where I don't want Tanaka to hit his 12th defense and then lose in his 13th. I would like for him to extend himself beyond Pac's record for a little bit. And what I like about this is that you're setting up an opportunity for him to beat Dragon Kid and then for him to also beat Fuda. Now you've set up 2 Bravegate matches, which I think is really well done. And you sort of have a question mark hanging over what Fuda does now.
Yeah, and I would say that also you look into how the fall is, and let me pull back up the schedule for it. 8
Homecoming
days.
shows, Homecoming shows September 20th. I was just looking at the same thing.
Right, yeah, so the September schedule is going to be chaotic, as it's going to be, the 3rd will be the Rey de Parejas finals. They have a Yamato Homecoming match on the 6th, and that's the one that has Shingo Takagi coming in. The 12th is Oda Ward. Then they have a Kanagawa show. They have a Nagano show. And then on the 20th, they have Tohoku Dragon Gateway. And you've just set up your Bravegate programs through that point. And you with Tanaka, at least, you look at the length of a reign and the records that he has left. He gets through those. He's going to be past day 400. And he's staring down Pac's single reign record of 447 days. That's within reach now.
And I see no reason why they should be eager to move off of him. Dragon Kid's not going to beat him. I mean, I feel like it would be a disaster for Fuda if he beat him. That would feel
he would have to turn heel immediately. It would have to be a whole thing where like he betrays everyone in his hometown and he joins Gaja Dokuro. I can't dismiss it out of hand.
Suck? Wouldn't that suck if that's the way they end the Tanaka reign? I mean, that, you already have the pressure. This will sound overly dramatic, but I feel it within the context of Dragongate that this is actually a fair comparison. You already have the issue of whoever beats Tanaka is going to run the risk of being the Takeshi Rikio to the Kenta Kobashi with the GHC heavyweight title 20 years ago. You're already going to run that risk given how this Bravegate run has been. I still think there's one guy that I would even entertain right now in terms of beating Tanaka, and that is Gucci. I don't think the company's going to go in that direction, which baffles me, but he's the type of guy that has the momentum, is at the right place in his career, is at the right place in the pecking order to where I think he would really benefit. It would actually be elevated from beating Tanaka. Fuda's not in that spot where there's a babyface or a heel. And given everything we've gone through this year with Gaja Dokuro and the over-reliance on the cheating and the heel antics and what a turnoff this unit has been for most people, sub 1,000 attendance Korakuens multiple times this year, for them to even think about ending the Tanaka Bravegate run in some sort of gimmick heel finish would be revolting. I mean, it would be absolutely disgusting. It would take a lot of the wind out of my sails. And look, I'm not exactly in love with things that are going on right now. I have my own issues sometime opening up the laptop and really having to try really hard to focus on these shows because there's just not a lot for me to sink my teeth into. Fuda beating Tanaka in that fashion, I would really have to start looking in the mirror and asking myself some questions about what I'm doing here.
Yeah, I just can't dismiss it out of hand. You're absolutely right about it. It is such a gut punch to end the greatest Bravegate run of all time and all the momentum on that. Gucci is the obvious exit ramp whenever you want to get to that point. It just seems like to me that like we are really entering this phase of Tanaka's Bravegate run, that he has that one last record to get through, and getting through these two defenses will get him to that point. At least that'll get him to day 448, or at least close to it.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, if that's the case, I didn't realize he was that close to it. If he's that close to it, then yeah. I mean, full steam ahead, get him 2 more defenses. And then you're still in a situation, and I know we've gone through this exercise a ton, but, I just want to look back at who he's defended the belt against and who he hasn't, because you could always go back to a Kame rematch or a Rita rematch, or they can do, if they want to do another UT match, I would certainly welcome that. But you're going to get the Dragon Kid match. I presume we're going to get the Fuda match. There's always a chance they could do Susumu or Kagetora if they want to cut some weight. And we still don't have a junior defense. He hasn't wrestled the Clowns, which I guess is now a possibility. I'm still waiting on an Estrella defense. If he wanted to come back and wrestle one time in Japan, I think that would be super interesting. There's still some mileage here. Again, unless the move is we are going to elevate Gucci and then put Tanaka in the Dreamgate conversation immediately, I'm really not interested in the possibility of him losing the title, because I think this title reign, whether it is against Dragon Kid first time match, Fuda rematch, whatever it is, whatever the outcome is, I'm still super into it. And I just want to see this reign go and go and go. And outside of Gucci, there's nobody that I really feel is fit to properly challenge him and to give him a real run for his money as champion right now.
Yeah, no, it just seems like you have to get to the point when you're ready to get it to Gucci, and it does feel like as you like go towards fall, and I mean, you got to do it in Korakuen if you do that.
Got to do it in Korakuen. He hasn't done the Hyo match yet either, and I think it would be crazy if they had this big long Bravegate run and he didn't have the Hyo match. I don't think Hyo should beat him. And I would say Hyo realistically has better odds of beating him than Gucci does. I just think Gucci's the obvious answer, even if the company doesn't. But you go through Dragon Kid, you go through Fuda. By that point, they'll have probably beat Love and Peace on every single show ever. So then they'll have lost the Triangle Gate belts, and then you could do something with Hyo towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I kind of look at Hyo as King of Gate 2026 at this point. And I'm with you.
I agree. The problem is then you're in. Look, I'm far from the guy that judges people on size, but a KZ Hyo Dreamgate main event, I think, is certainly appalling. They're not exactly landing the cover of Weekly Pro with that match. You know what I mean? They're even for Dragon Gate.
KZ didn't even make it for winning the title.
No, of course not. It's G1 season. What do you think they're gonna do? Show coverage to Dragon Gate?
We have to get you way more on the cover.
Oh God,
that's what we got to do.
Of course, but I love him. I love KZ. I think Hyo should realistically have a Dreamgate match within the next year. I do think there, even for Dragon Gate, is an optics issue of Hyo versus KZ for the Dreamgate belt. I just think that is inviting anybody that is a detractor or a doubter of this promotion or of this style. I think they can hone in on a match like that, and I'm just not sure that that's where I want Hyo challenging for the belt.
No, that's entirely fair.
And I also think that he and Tanaka in Korakuen having a Bravegate match, one, I think you could headline Korakuen with that, and two, I think it would be super, super hot. No, and it's crazy they've held off on it for this long, but that's another one that it's like, I'm ready for that. I think that would be great, and I think they could do 1,300 people in the building with that match.
Yeah, no, I think that, especially with the way they treated Gucci in the building, it seems like even if it's not him winning the title there, you've got to do the Bravegate match for him and Korakuen. And
what a great story that would be. I mean, that writes itself. If they go through this Tanaka reign and they don't do that, whether Gucci wins or loses, I think that's malpractice. That's just terrible.
No, I'm totally with you on that. let's talk about the Rey de Parejas action that we had. It was 3 matches to kick off the opening night. They opened the show with a full ceremony. Homare, technically, as the winner of last year's Rey de Parejas, gave the opening address, which was kind of funny. I think that he was even kind of surprised about it. But we got into tournament action. We have 3 block matches. Cielo and Mante versus Flamita and Sangre Azteca Jr., the original Jimmyz versus Strong Machine J and Leona, and then the main event of Team 204 versus Hyo and Myon Myon. An interesting first night. We were all kind of speculating on Myon Myon. Should we talk about Myon Myon first?
Let's hold off on that. Let's go chronological here, because I think you and I are maybe on completely different pages on one of these matches.
Okay. Well, we're going to get into that right now. The first Rey de Parejas match was Mante and El Cielo versus Flamita and Sangre Azteca Jr. This was a B block matchup. It was a Super Tigre out of nowhere to get the win for Mante and Cielo, putting them at 2 points and leaving Flamita and Azteca Jr. at 0 points. And I love this. I was 4 flat on this. I thought that this was, as someone who I'll admit, I have not been watching enough of Michinoku Pro and Sangre Azteca Jr. here, but I really enjoyed him with Flamita in this. I thought that Mante and Cielo had great chemistry as a team here, and these two guys do kind of seem like natural pairings. And I just thought that this was the strongest thing on the show, and really enjoy the fact that it just kind of was an all-out sprint, just tag match, and with 2 teams that never really have teamed before that. And you had a huge lamb fly near fall at 10 minutes that I bought completely.
I'll rank these workers individually in this match. I thought Cielo was great. I thought this was an outstanding El Cielo performance. Really liked the energy that he brought to the table. I do, and just as a caveat, as a little side note here, given what we saw with KZ and with Kakuta in July, it is crazy to think that Cielo was ever in that conversation. And I say this as somebody that doubted whether or not KZ should even be in that spot, but knowing what I know now, it's crazy that Cielo was even considered. That being said, I thought Cielo was great in this match. I thought Flamita was very good. Tournament Flamita, modern day natural vibes Flamita. I complained at the end of our Kobe World review. I thought he might go home after World, and I thought, God, did they waste his time in Japan this year? Just nothing of note, nothing for him to sink his teeth into. The weakest Japanese tour he's had since probably 2019. Now he's sticking around for Rey de Parejas. I thought he was very good here. I do keep up with modern day Michinoku Pro. I thought Sangre Azteca Jr. was good. I think he's very clearly a step behind Flamita. I think he's a step behind Cielo. I thought Sangre Azteca was good. I thought he looked like a lower tier Dragongate wrestler in this match, but you know what? When you're in a match with Flamita and with Cielo, that's okay. He held his own as best he could. I don't know what planet Luis Mante was on in this match. I thought he, at various points in time, ground this match to a halt, lacked energy, lacked charisma, didn't pull his weight. I thought the finish looked like shit, which was by way of him. I thought Mante dragged this match down to a noticeable degree. Now, I'm not going to panic and have any long-term concerns about Mante. The stock's still high. I still wish this guy was in a unit. I still wish they would push him and do something with him. But my God, did I think this was an off night for Mante. And as a result, I was nowhere near as high as you were.
Yeah, Mante had a really gnarly moment hitting the top turnbuckle and falling to the floor towards the finishing stretch that took Jay and Ho out when they noticed how rough that kind of was, and the fact that he kind of revitalized himself to get him into or make it to the finish was kind of surprising there. I think that for me, this was a match that kind of, I was so excited about seeing Sangre Azteca that maybe my enthusiasm maybe colors it somewhat, that like I had high expectations and it didn't completely stink. So I thought it was better than probably.
But
than
no,
clearly you did.
I thought Azteca was good in this match. My issue was Mante laying on his back, putting him in a key lock for what felt like 25 minutes. There were just little Mante things in this match where I was like, yes, the Flamita Mante and Alpha Bane Dragon Wolf matches from last year, yes, those were cursed. Those all ended poorly. For whatever reason, those matches, outside of the Buyoden one, which is the one that nobody saw but you and I, those matches in Korakuen just for whatever reason did not have the vibe. They were not able to stick the landing on those, but they went balls to the walls and they were all super crazy in those matches. And this was, I thought, Cielo being reckless in a way that was wildly entertaining, Flamita sort of being the glue of this match, Azteca Jr. being there. And I thought Mante was just, it was like he was wrestling a different match. I was like, you're in there with Cielo and with Flamita. Pick up the energy just a little bit.
He did have a great mask, though. He did wrestle.
He did.
Yeah. Him and Cielo had the split masks, and then Flamita and Azteca Jr. had split masks. It was a really coll aesthetic performance at the very end.
This is, I don't know if we're going to get the digest stuff on YouTube. It seems like there might be tentative plans to do that. So that way we would see more of Flamita and Azteca Jr. If we only get Kobe, Osaka, Nara, this will be the last time we see them. I'm looking forward to seeing what else Mante and Cielo can do. I want to like that team. I would love for Zenith to eventually be Yoshioka Minoura, Mante, Cielo, Fuda, because we didn't really talk about that with Fuda. I think the obvious direction is the heel turn towards Gaja Dokuro. I would kind of like the swerve of Minoura liking his fire and inviting him into that unit. And then you could put Mante and Cielo there, and then you filled out that unit without issue. But I'm going to need to see more of this team, and I'm going to need Mante to pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah, and given the fact that we're going to have a lot of Cielo and Mante make tape, hopefully this was just an off night, and then we could see how things are as we progress further. The second Rey de Parejas match was a A-block match. It was the original Jimmyz team of Susumu Yokosuka and Kagetora versus the second generation. The war between the Fujinami and the Harada family. It was 40 years of a war that Tatsumi Fujinami waged, unveiling super strong machine. But that has finally this year has been put behind us. We have the second generation team. It is the Harada and the Fujinami families finally uniting. Strong Machine J and Leona. And it was a machine suplex hold after a struggle on Kagetora, getting the win for the second generation team. Maybe a little bit of a surprise upset. The original Jimmyz stay pat at 0, and Strong Machine J and Leona exit the first night with 2 points.
I only would have been bothered by the finish had it been Leona pinning somebody. But Strong Machine J, he needs wins. He needs to look strong. I'm not sure this tournament's going to accomplish that with him. I think it's a little bit dangerous to have the young vibes together, to have KZ as Dreamgate champion, and to have Flamita with seemingly a really exciting partner when Strong Machine J already feels ice cold, to then put him with Leona. I have some long-term concerns there, but this was perfectly acceptable, mediocre pro wrestling.
Yeah, Leona is just a hard watch.
Yes. He just moves around the ring in a way that is unpleasant to watch.
Yeah, he is just not a aesthetically pleasing pro wrestler. Just I'm not pulling punches here. He is a weird looking guy. Like El Lindemann, he's a weird looking guy. And the way he wrestles is like he's not forgetting that he spent time in the snake pit, and that's okay, I guess, but it's tough sledding this team, having him around. Like, it makes sense. I like the storyline. I like the fact that they are able to, play off of the old history with that. It seems that it pops the crowd. That's cool. But I didn't have much enthusiasm when I figured out that it was Leona being his tag team partner. And I still don't really have a lot of enthusiasm about the team. And it felt like I liked the Susumu and Strong Machine J bit towards it. Kagetora goes for a Tornado Acapulco that was kind of wild with it. But those were just kind of the two moments in this match. This was a gentleman's 3 of a tag match.
I just wish that it was Strong Machine J and UT. I don't know if it would have raised the floor of this match all that much, but I think it would have been a little bit more palatable that way. Yeah.
It would have had to, case, and maybe that there's more credence to, like, I know that there was like big fears about UT's neck and going into a Golden Coliseum and seeing like it with how that Bravegate match with that there was a level of concern there with him, but I guess that they were really charmed by the way of doing this second generation teammate thing.
Indeed. We skipped over something here. I was trying to go chronological, and I had to remind myself just a second ago. I was like, there's no way they went to intermission after this match,
I
right?
apologize.
No, it's okay.
I was,
They went to intermission after the luchador tag, which is only... I'm glad we had this conversation, because as you were talking, I was like, did they go to intermission after the Leona match? Or have we lost the plot that much? But no, they went to intermission after the luchador tag. And Mike, what did we find out at intermission?
when we went to intermission, we found out that the video screen was not just there to display the Xenostal Nova, which is the name of the Tanaka unit case, Xenostal Nova.
Not going to stick with me, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, to show that logo with it. It was to display a video of someone making his return for the first time in 14 years, 12 years. Uhaa Nation is returning to Dragongate at Oda Ward. The monster is back.
That's awesome. You and I were covering the promotion. I know at least I was. I mean, you were doing Dragon Age stuff by March of 2015, weren't you? Yeah.
Oh, 2015, I was doing solo stuff and just doing other kind of Dragon Gate reporting. I wasn't affiliated with Voices of Wrestling at that time, though.
Yeah, but it's a long time coming for Uhaa. March of 2015 is a really, really long time ago. I mean, as I look at this card, the last show that he wrestled on, you still have the original Jimmyz. You still have Dia Hearts. Second match on this show, Tozawa and Shingo versus Lindemann and Maria. You have the Mad Blanky Zombies of Shima, Don Fuji, and Gamma on this show. Wrestling, by the way, UT, T-Hawk, and Kotoka of the Millennials. Semi-main event, Yoshino and Sachihoko Boy versus Cyber Kong and Yamato. And then your main event, the Uhaa Nation Farewell Dreamgate match, BB Hulk versus Uhaa Nation. I thought when Uhaa signed 12 years ago, I thought he was the biggest slam dunk, no-brainer superstar. I thought there was no way they take this super likable, charismatic, muscular, athletic guy and turn him into a shell of a human. And yet that's exactly what happened. And he spent 12 years, hopefully making very good money, hopefully spending a lot of time with his family, but doing nothing of note, nothing of relevance within the world of pro wrestling. So he's only back for one night. He's only going to wrestle on that Tokyo show on the 12th, but it'll be very nice to see him back. Is there anybody currently on the roster? I guess let me ask it this way. What do you hope Uhaa's doing on the 12th?
I hope it's not like a cram him in 10-man tag. Like that is kind of my fear, because you look at the people that were around and that he was really affiliated with, and the only member of Monster Express that's still around is Sachihoko Boy. So he is kind of like this, well, like 2 or 3 generations away. It was great to have him back. It's going to be amazing. He was, whereas you thought he was a no doubt instant superstar, I thought he went to WWE too early. I thought that he still had at least probably a year's worth of development in Japan before that. And we didn't, but I mean, he took the offer when it happened. I don't know who you have him face, to be frank, Case. I've been racking my head about it since yesterday. Yamato's tied up, and when you look at guys that were really around in 2014, it's kind of the veterans, and that's not what you want. You don't want to see the veterans versus Uhaa Nation.
I want to see him and Kakuta together. I think my ideal version of that is Uhaa and Mochi against Kakuta and Jason. That's what I'm hoping we get out of this.
I like that. I think that you could probably get something there with that, or at least it'll keep my attention.
I know that's contradictory to the point I've made over the last year of I'm sick of seeing Kakuta wrestle guys his size, and he always wrestles better against guys much smaller that he can push around. Uhaa's different. I would like to see Kakuta and Uhaa. That feels like the most natural pairing to me.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. I think that it makes a lot of sense to have him there for that.
So we got the great news of Uhaa coming back. Then we got the Leona match. Then we got the Shun Skywalker farewell. We've already talked about that. And that took us to the main event.
That took us to our main event of Rey de Parejas Kickoff. This also was in the A block. This was the Open the Twin Gate Champions, Team 204 kg of Ishin and Yoshiki Kato versus Hyo and Myon Myon. Myon Myon, we all were speculating what exactly are they going to do? Is it going to be Hyo wrestling with the stuffed leopard? Is it going to be Junior in the onesie that he had on at a Prime Zone? I had kind of a little bit of a feeling that it was going to be what happened, guys. As Hyo makes his entrance, he is pulling on the chain, he's pulling on it hard, and he yanks out Johnny Valletta in matching it tights. And then the Z-Brats theme hits. Johnny Valletta is now Johnny Myon Myon Valletta, and he is Hyo's tag team partner during Rey de Parejas. They kind of work, they kind of don't. It's a lot of Hyo trying to love on Johnny, and Johnny being Johnny Valletta. He gets the win with the claw slam and the King Kong knee drop because he's Johnny Valletta, and he's going to steamroll his way through what all the shenanigans Team 204 put them to put Hyo and Johnny at 2 points, leaving the first night, and the Open the Twin Gate champions start off their tournament with a loss.
Look, I don't love it, but they found a reason for Valletta to stick around. I don't need him in Love and Peace. I don't need him beyond this tournament. I really don't think I want to see his face come October. But if he's working this tournament through the big show on the 12th and Ota Ward, all right, they got me. I popped when he came out of the curtain. Korakuen went crazy when he came out of the curtain. It was a nice moment. It gives Hyo something of substance to do in this tournament. My guess is they're going to win the entire thing now, and if not, they're going to come damn close, which I have some issues with, but that's okay. You know, I would much rather see a smaller, more work-ready team eventually come out on top. But, I mean, God, you mentioned that earlier about the Dragongate champions now being in this tournament and it being unrealistic for them to win it. I think it's unrealistic for Kame and Rita to win it. Mike, I don't think it would shock me if a month from now we have a Twin Gate match with Hyo and Valletta in Ota City Gymnasium.
I mean, that would mean no Triangle Gate match.
Yeah, but it's Kame and Rita. They don't care.
No, you're right. They
no, I mean, what's the difference? Yeah. Throw them in a match with Junior that won't be for the belts, and they'll move on with their day. I've learned, you know, I'm not going to fall for this again and again and again. They don't care. They're focused in this unit, and I don't even think they're necessarily wrong for this. They look at Hyo as the primary focus of this unit. To me, my whole argument with Love and Peace the entire time has been, you know, when Ben K is healthy, you've got 5 guys that you can push to the forefront. This could be your mega super babyface unit that does everything. That's the most visible. That's the most active. That wins the most. They're not doing that. But they still have some value in Hyo. And it feels like this is now the team that is going to win this match. Because, by the way, Mike, if you have Hyo and Kame and Rita defend the Triangle Gate belts in Tokyo, then what do you do with Junior? So you got to have Kame and Rita off the show so they can, or at least off of a title match, so they can then team with Junior, so they can eventually lose the Triangle Gate belts on a smaller show.
Man, that's depressing.
I know. I don't like it, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, and the pop that they got for Johnny was through the roof.
It was awesome. It was a great moment.
Yeah, it was exactly kind of the thing that you want to see Dragon Gate kind of do with it. It does kind of feel like that it is a way to keep Johnny busy, which, you know, given the situation, it needs that he's going to stick around. I'd rather him be doing stuff and be vaguely Love and Peace affiliated for the next time period. It gets him a place. It kind of moves him on. It doesn't put him in the veterans. It keeps him a kind of an active part of the roster. So I'm down with that. I just like, to me, it does for you, it seems like that Johnny entering the tournament has completely changed the calculus of this Rey de Parejas. It still hasn't changed it for me. I still think that they're running essentially a 3-match series with Zenith and Team 204.
Well, I think that'll be the finals. I think it'll be Hyo and Valletta versus Yoshioka and Minoru next month. And quite honestly, I think it'll be a super hot match. And I think that's a 50-50 match. I think it's interesting. If I had my choice of those two teams, I would go with the Zenith duo. But if that's the finals, given the fact that this company has struggled to generate matches that crowds want to see and that crowds can get invested in this year, I think that sort of solves that problem, at least for one night.
That's fair. I think you're selling me on it.
I don't necessarily like it. To me, it's the tournament that should be Kame and Rita, or Kagatora and Susumu, or Mante and Cielo, who I thought that at this time last week were going to win the whole thing. Now, I think it's a toss-up between Hyo and Valletta and Yoshioka and Minoura.
I'm still going towards Zenith, but I'm not completely as firm on it as I was last week.
What do you think of the match as a match?
You know, I thought that it was fun. I thought Ishin brought his working shoes and was really going for it, especially like the cannonball tope that he does like right at the start. Like the Johnny basically doing the old Roderick Strong and Jack Evans offense with Hyo. I'm always a fan of that kind of tag team work here. And I mean, everything kind of paid off. You had a big thing about the turnbuckle pad being pulled off, and then this was the match that had heel shenanigans in it, at least at a certain rate. Too, it made sense that you did them against Johnny, where they greatly don't work against. So I was on board with that. But I mean, it was like a 3.5 star main event.
I'm with you there. I had the same rating. I thought it was a really entertaining 3.5 star match. I thought it was worked in the way that it should. Like I said earlier, I thought the heel stuff really worked in the confines of this match. I don't want it throughout the rest of the tournament, but for what this was, the timing of it, the frantic nature of it, the fact that Valletta was involved, I thought all of this worked very well. I was very satisfied with this main event by the end of it, and that is not a feeling I've had a ton this year.
And I think the word satisfied also kind of puts a nice like bow on my thoughts on this Korakuen. It was not the killer Korakuen, hoping that will be the Rey de Parejas finals Korakuen for that. We know how crazy it was in Kobe last year for the 3 matches for Shun Mare to win Rey de Parejas last year, 2025. But I'm satisfied with this show. I thought that there was a lot of coming out of Kobe World. We had a level of optimism and at least a fresh air kind of coming in, and then they had landed the plane on certain things, and you had an eye looking ahead to what would happen on this Korakuen. And I think that this was a storyline advancement Korakuen that also kicked off a tournament, but it was more heavily slanted towards storylines. And for a company that hasn't been kicking them dead with storylines, at least in 2026, I thought that by and large, this was a large success of a show.
I would not say that I'm optimistic, but I do think this show is productive, and that is baby step towards being optimistic. So I will take that for now.
Yeah, and didn't even mention that the Dreamgate match is finalized. It is Yamato making a challenge against KZ at Oda Ward. We have essentially the business end of the card already figured out 6 weeks out or 5 weeks out, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's all I ask for. That's what I wanted out of Kobe World, and yet we were a month out from that show with nothing booked. So this is an improvement. I like the matches on paper. I think Yamato versus KZ could be really special. I think Tanaka versus Dragon Kid could be really special. We'll have that Twin Gate match, and then Jiro versus Minoru Suzuki is what it is. Could be super fun. Could be annoying. We'll have to say.
Yep, we'll have to see about that. But, buddy, I think that's all I have for us this week. As we mentioned earlier, next week will be a lot more of a retrospective on the career of Shun Skywalker, and we'll probably step in with whatever Rey de Parejas thoughts we have at that point, if anything makes YouTube. Anything else you want to touch on before we got out of here?
End of the month, the return of those days. That is very much at the forefront of our minds. We're working on figuring out the next one. You'll have one, at least one, by the end of August, if not maybe a double up towards the end of the month. But that's coming. But next week, a full breakdown of the Dragongate career of Shun Skywalker.
Absolutely. And you could follow us on social media, cases@_in-your-case on Twitter. I'm at Fujiheya with 2 eyes like Don Fuji there. Open the Voice Gate is on both Twitter and Blue Sky. You can find us at Open Voice Gate on both platforms. And there's the Voices of Wrestling Discord, where you could have a live chat figuring out Xenostal Nova, which is Tanaka Gun's name, case. and during the Dragongate channel, as well as me making sure cases well appraised of one of the more cringe people in the wrestling industry, in Brooks Jensen. That's the Open the Voice Gate channel. But as we get to those days at the end of this month, we will have our match listings posted there as well. That's the Voices of Wrestling Discord. But that's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back with you next time. Take care, everyone.
Hey everybody, my name is Jesse Collins, and I am the host of the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, a show right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. On the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, we take a deep look at individual issues and stories that are going on in the wrestling world. Each episode is about a different topic, and we take a thorough and educated look at things ranging from current booking trends to breakdowns on individual performers and angles to investigations into different fan cultures across the industry. In addition, we keep a close eye on the wrestling media, and as a professional journalist, I bring a unique perspective to how current issues in wrestling are being covered and discussed through the wrestling media. We have a revolving series of guests from across wrestling punditry joining us on each episode, and we hope that you make the choice to give us a listen on wherever you get your podcast from.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.